So my mom posted on Facebook the day I moved out. The 31-year-old leech is finally gone. No more cooking his meals or washing his underwear. 1,247 likes. My Aunt Teresa commented, "Remember when he cried at 25 because McDonald's rejected him? Still unemployed." My dad posted before and after photos of my room versus what he's calling his new man cave. My sister Tabitha tagged all her friends with a warning about dating gamers. My ex-girlfriend Justine liked the post and commented that she dodged a bullet breaking up with me. 28 comments total, all roasting me, all public, all with my full name visible. I screenshot every single one, liked each comment, waited exactly 14 days. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to explain how we got here because the whole situation is so much worse than it looks. My grandmother died when I was 23. She left me her house in her will, the same house my parents had been living in since I was 10, the house I grew up in, the house they treated as theirs. The lawyer explained everything to all of us in his office after the funeral. My grandmother had been disappointed in my dad for years because he kept borrowing money from her and never paying it back. So she left the house to me with the condition that my parents could live there as long as they wanted. She trusted me more than she trusted her own son. My dad acted like it didn't matter. He told everyone the house was basically still his because I was his kid. And what's mine is theirs, right? My mom agreed. They kept referring to it as their house in conversations. When friends came over, Dad gave tours like he owned the place. When something broke, Dad decided how to fix it. They never once asked my opinion about anything related to the house. I was 23 and working part-time at a call center, making barely enough to cover my car payment. I didn't push back. I figured we were family and it would work itself out. I kept living in my childhood bedroom. I paid rent to my parents every month even though I legally owned the house because my dad said I needed to contribute. $300 a month for 8 years. I did the math recently. That's $28,800 I paid to live in my own house. The McDonald's thing my aunt mentioned? I applied there at 25 because I needed a second job. My mom found out somehow and told the whole family. She thought it was hilarious that I couldn't even get hired at a fast food place. What she didn't know was that I had just started doing freelance web development on the side and was making decent money. I didn't need McDonald's. I applied because I was bored and thought the structure might be good for me. When they rejected me, probably because I was overqualified, my mom turned it into this whole narrative about how unemployable I was. Here's what they didn't know. I wasn't unemployed. I had been running a web development and digital marketing business from my room for 6 years. I worked with small businesses, built their websites, managed their social media, handled their online advertising. I made good money, really good money. But I kept it quiet because every time I tried to explain what I did, my dad would laugh and say, "Playing on computers isn't a real job." My mom would ask when I was going to get serious about my future. Tabitha told her friends I was probably doing something illegal because nobody makes money from their bedroom. So I stopped trying to explain. I let them think I was unemployed. I paid my ridiculous rent on time every month. I bought my own food and kept it separate in the fridge. I did my own laundry in the basement at night when nobody was around. My mom still complained about cooking for me, even though I had explicitly told her dozens of times to stop making me dinner. She would make extra food, put it on a plate, then complain to Dad about how much work it was to feed me. She wanted the martyr points. The girlfriend thing is its own mess. Justine and I dated for 2 years. She broke up with me 8 months ago because my living situation embarrassed her. She didn't want to tell her friends that her boyfriend lived with his parents at 30. Never mind that I had explained the house situation to her multiple times. Never mind that I had offered to move out and get my own place, and she said no because she wasn't ready to get that serious. She wanted me to somehow live independently while also not being too independent. When she ended things, she told her friends I was a man-child who couldn't take care of himself. I saw her comment on Mom's post and realized she had been talking to my family this whole time. Moving out was my decision. I had been planning it for 2 years. I saved up enough money to buy a condo outright. No mortgage. I furnished it completely before I even told my family I was leaving. I hired movers. I packed everything in boxes over the course of a week while they were at work. On the day I moved, I waited until everyone was home. I told them I was leaving and the movers would be there in an hour. My dad asked where I was going. I said I bought a place. He asked how I could afford that without a job. I told him I had a job and had been working for years. He laughed. He actually laughed. Mom asked if I needed them to co-sign a lease for me. Tabitha asked if I was moving into some dumpy apartment with roommates. I said no. I bought a 2-bedroom condo in a nice building downtown, paid in cash, and I wouldn't need anything from them. The laughing stopped. Dad asked how I had that kind of money. I reminded him I had been paying rent for 8 years and working the entire time. He said $300 a month couldn't possibly add up to enough for a down payment. I told him I hadn't been living off their money at all. I had my own income, a substantial income. Mom's face changed then. She asked why I had been pretending to be unemployed. I told her I never pretended anything. I told her what I did for work multiple times. She chose not to listen. Tabitha asked if I was leaving them with all the bills. I pointed out that I had been paying rent and they had been collecting it. Dad said the rent was to cover my share of utilities and food. I mentioned that I bought my own food and paid my own phone bill and car insurance. Mom brought up the laundry detergent I used. I told her I had been buying my own detergent for 3 years and keeping it in my room. The movers arrived. I directed them to my room. My family stood in the hallway watching. Dad asked if we could talk about this. I said there was nothing to talk about. I was 31 years old and moving out. This was normal. Mom started crying. She said I was abandoning them. Tabitha said I was being selfish. I kept directing the movers. Dad asked if I was really going to leave them alone in this big house. I looked at him. I said yes. He asked what they were supposed to do about the mortgage. I told him there was no mortgage. The house was paid off. Grandmother had paid it off before she died. He said they still had property taxes and insurance and maintenance. I agreed that they did. Mom asked if I was going to help with those costs. I said no. The movers finished loading everything. I walked through the house one last time. My room was empty. The bathroom I had used was cleaned out. I had taken all my stuff from the common areas weeks ago and they hadn't even noticed. I stopped in the living room. My family was sitting on the couch. Dad asked if I was really doing this. I said yes. He called me ungrateful. Mom said after everything they had done for me, Tabitha said I was going to regret this. I left. I drove to my new place. The movers unloaded everything. I tipped them well. I ordered pizza. I sat in my empty living room eating pizza on the floor, and it was the best meal I had had in years. That night, Mom posted on Facebook the celebratory post about me finally being gone. All the comments from family and friends, the shared humiliation, the public mockery. I read every word. I liked every comment. I wanted them to know I saw it. I wanted the record to be clear that they had done this publicly, and I had acknowledged it. I waited 14 days. I wanted to give them time. Time to enjoy their freedom. Time to really settle into the idea that I was gone and they could finally live their lives without the burden of their unemployed loser son. Time for the satisfaction to really sink in. On day 15, they were going to get some mail that would change everything, but that comes later. For now, I'm in my condo. I've been working on projects, making money, living my life. My phone has been quiet. Nobody from my family has texted to ask how I'm settling in. Nobody has called to see if I need anything. Justine hasn't reached out. I'm completely alone and it's perfect. 14 days is almost up. Update 1. Okay, so the 14 days are up and holy hell, this is moving faster than I expected. Some of you said I should have acted sooner, but trust me, the timing was deliberate. I needed them comfortable. I needed them confident. I needed them to really believe they had won. Day 15 was a Thursday. I know because I had marked it on my calendar 2 months ago when I started putting everything in motion. The mail arrived at the house around noon, based on the timestamp from the tracking system. I had been refreshing the page all morning from my condo. Signed for at 12:47 p.m. My dad's signature. 3 hours later, my phone started ringing. Dad's number. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately. Voicemail. Mom called. Voicemail. Tabitha called from a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. Dad again. Voicemail. The calls kept coming. I turned my phone face down on my desk and went back to work. I had a client presentation at 3 and I wasn't going to let their panic disrupt my actual job. By the time I finished the presentation at 4:30, I had 31 missed calls and 17 text messages. I made myself coffee. I sat down at my kitchen counter. I opened the messages. Dad's first text said, "We need to talk right now. This is serious." His second text said, "Stop being childish and answer the phone." His third text said, "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not okay." Mom's texts were different. She said, "Please call us back. We're confused about something." Then she said, "Your father is very upset. You need to explain this." Then she said, "I can't believe you would do this to your own parents." Tabitha's texts were the most interesting. She said, "What the hell did you send to the house?" Then she said, "Mom is freaking out. You need to fix this." Then she said, "I always knew you were a vindictive little jerk." I didn't respond to any of them. I ordered Thai food. I watched a movie. I went to bed around 11. My phone had stopped ringing by then, but the text messages were still coming. Dad sent one at 10:23 p.m. that said, "We can work this out, just call me back." I turned my phone off completely and slept better than I had in years. Friday morning, I turned my phone back on. 42 missed calls overnight, 29 new text messages, several voicemails. I listened to the voicemails while I made breakfast. The first one was Dad trying to sound reasonable. He said, "Look, I know we had some words when you moved out, but this is extreme, and we need to discuss it like adults." The second voicemail was Mom crying. She said, "I don't understand why you're doing this. We love you, and this is so hurtful." The third voicemail was Dad again, angrier this time. He said, "You have no right to do this, and if you think you can just destroy this family, then you have another thing coming." The fourth voicemail was from a number I didn't recognize. Teresa, my aunt. She said, "I heard about what's happening, and I think you need to reconsider because your parents have been good to you your whole life, and this is how you repay them?" She said, "Family doesn't treat family this way." And I was being ungrateful and immature. She said grandmother would be ashamed of me. That voicemail made me laugh. Grandmother would be ashamed of me. Grandmother specifically left me the house because she knew exactly what kind of person my dad was. She knew he would never pay her back. She knew he took advantage of her kindness for years. She trusted me because I was the only one who visited her every week in the nursing home without asking for money. I deleted all the voicemails. I texted Dad back one word. "Okay. Just okay. Nothing else." He called immediately. I answered this time because I wanted to hear what he would say now that he couldn't hide behind voicemail. His voice was tight. He asked what the hell I thought I was doing. I asked what he was referring to. He said, "Don't play games with me, you know exactly what I'm talking about." I said I really didn't, and he needed to be specific. He told me I had sent them some kind of official notice about the house. I asked him what the notice said. He said it said I was the legal owner, and I was informing them of the terms of their continued residence. I said yes, that's correct. He said they had been living there for over 20 years, and I couldn't just kick them out. I pointed out that I wasn't kicking them out. I was just clarifying the legal situation. Mom grabbed the phone. She said this was ridiculous, and I was being cruel, and they were my parents, and how could I treat them this way? I asked her what specifically I had done that was cruel. She said sending them official legal documents like they were strangers. I reminded her that she had posted on Facebook calling me a leech and celebrating my departure. She said that was different. I asked how. She said she was just venting to friends and I was taking it too seriously. I told her 1,247 people liked her post, and that seemed pretty serious to me. Dad took the phone back. He said, "Fine. I made my point. Everyone was sorry about the Facebook thing. Now could we please move past this?" I asked if everyone was actually sorry or if he was just saying that to make this go away. He didn't answer that. Instead, he asked what my terms were. I said, "Terms for what?" He said for them continuing to live in the house. I told him I would send that information in writing. He started yelling. He said I was being impossible and this was his home, and I was acting like some kind of landlord when I was his son. I said yes, I was his son, and also I was the legal owner of the property he was living in, and those two things could both be true. Mom was crying in the background. Dad said if I was going to be like this, then maybe they should just move out. I said that was their choice to make. He hung up on me. Tabitha called 10 minutes later. She was furious. She said I was tearing the family apart over stupid pride. I asked her how much rent she paid to live there. She said she didn't live there anymore. I said, right, but when she was living there until she was 27, how much rent did she pay? She said that was different because she was helping with household expenses. I asked her to quantify that. She couldn't. She changed tactics and said I was being a horrible brother and Mom was devastated. And did I even care? I said Mom posted publicly mocking me, and Aunt Teresa brought up the McDonald's rejection, and Tabitha herself had warned her friends about dating guys like me, so maybe everyone should think about their own behavior before judging mine. She said I was impossible to talk to and she hoped I was happy alone in my condo. She hung up. The calls slowed down after that. I think they were regrouping, figuring out their strategy. I went to the gym. I worked on a client project. I went grocery shopping. Normal Friday things. My phone stayed mostly quiet until evening. Then Justine texted me. She said, "Hey, I heard you're having problems with your family." I stared at that text for a solid minute trying to figure out how she had heard anything. She texted again and said Tabitha told her and she was sorry things were difficult. I asked her why Tabitha was talking to her. Justine said they had stayed friends after we broke up. I asked her when they had become friends. She said they followed each other on social media and sometimes chatted. I asked if she knew about the Facebook post. She said yes. I asked if she had seen it before she liked it. She said yes. I asked why she would like a post publicly humiliating her ex-boyfriend. She said she didn't think of it that way at the time. I asked how she thought of it. She said she was still hurt about our breakup and seeing the post made her feel validated in her decision. I told her that was honest, at least. She asked if we could meet up and talk. I said no. She asked why not. I said because we broke up 8 months ago and she had made it clear I embarrassed her and now she wanted to talk because I had a condo and suddenly my living situation was acceptable. She said that wasn't fair. I told her to have a good night and didn't respond to her follow-up texts. Saturday morning, Dad called again. His voice was different this time. Calmer, more calculated. He said he had been thinking about everything and maybe we had all overreacted. He said family fights sometimes, but what matters is working through it. He asked if I wanted to come over for dinner and we could discuss everything face to face. I asked what there was to discuss. He said the house situation and how we were going to handle things going forward. I said I had already handled things. He asked what that meant. I told him he would get more information early next week. He asked why I was dragging this out. I said I wasn't dragging anything out. I was just managing my property and my business on my own timeline. Mom got on the phone. She asked me to please just come over and have dinner with them like a normal family. She said we could work everything out if I would just talk to them in person. I reminded her that I had tried to talk to them in person multiple times over the years, and nobody listened. She said this was different. I asked how. She said because now they understood I was serious. I said understanding I was serious wasn't the same as respecting me. She started crying again. The thing is, they still don't know everything. The mail I sent was just the property ownership notice. Legal documentation that I am the sole owner of the house, and they are residing there at my discretion. But that's just the opening move. They think this is about the house. They think if they apologize for the Facebook post and promise to treat me better, then everything will go back to normal. They have no idea what normal is about to become. Update 2. Monday came, and I sent the second round of documents. This time it wasn't just a property ownership notice. It was a formal lease agreement. Month-to-month tenancy at market rate for a 4-bedroom house in our area. I had done the research. Comparable properties were renting for $2,800 to $3,200 a month. I set their rent at $3,000 even. The lease included standard terms about utilities, maintenance responsibilities, and notice periods. I had a lawyer review everything to make sure it was ironclad. I sent it certified mail again. I also sent digital copies to all 3 of their email addresses. I wanted there to be no confusion about what was happening. The calls started before the physical mail even arrived. Dad must have checked his email. He called me at 8:47 a.m. I was in the middle of a client meeting, so I declined the call. He called again at 8:49, then 8:51, then 4 more times in the next 10 minutes. I silenced my phone. When I finished my meeting at 9:30, I had 23 missed calls and a voicemail from Dad that was just him yelling about how I couldn't do this and they weren't paying me rent and I was out of my mind if I thought this was going to work. His voice was shaking. He sounded desperate. Good. Mom called next. She tried a different approach. She said she understood I was hurt about the Facebook post, but this was going too far, and we needed to find a middle ground. I asked her what middle ground she had in mind. She said maybe I could charge them something reasonable, like $500 a month, and they could help with some of the property taxes. I told her $500 a month was less than what I had been paying them to live in my own house. She said that was different because I was their child. I said I was also the property owner. She said property owner or not, I was still their son, and I had a responsibility to family. I asked her if she remembered what grandmother's will said. She went quiet. I said grandmother left me the house specifically because she didn't trust Dad with it. I said grandmother knew exactly what kind of person he was because he had borrowed money from her for 20 years and never paid back a cent. Mom said that wasn't fair and Dad had always intended to pay her back. I asked when. She didn't have an answer. Dad sent me a text that said, "We are not signing anything." I replied that was fine, but they would need to vacate the property within 30 days, per the notice I had included in the documentation. He called immediately. He said I couldn't evict them. I said I absolutely could. And the notice was legally valid. He said he would fight me on this. I said he could try, but he would lose and it would cost him money he didn't have for lawyers. He hung up. Tabitha called an hour later. She had clearly been coached. She asked if we could meet somewhere to talk about this situation. I asked why. She said because we were family, and family should talk face to face. I reminded her that she had warned all her friends about dating guys like me on Facebook. She said she was sorry about that and she had been upset and said things she didn't mean. I asked her if she had deleted the comment. She said no. I asked why not. She said because it would look weird to delete it now. I told her that told me everything I needed to know about how sorry she was. She switched tactics and said I was putting Mom and Dad in an impossible position. I asked how. She said they couldn't afford $3,000 a month. I said then they should find somewhere they could afford. She said they had lived there for over 20 years. I pointed out that they had lived there rent-free in a house that wasn't theirs because grandmother was generous and I had been too passive. She said I was being vindictive. I said I was being a property owner. Then she said something interesting. She asked what this was really about. She said it couldn't just be about the Facebook post because I was taking this too far. She said there had to be something else. I didn't answer. She kept pushing. She said I was acting like they had done something terrible when really they had just made one post. I asked her if she really thought it was just one post. She said yes. I asked her if she remembered the McDonald's thing. She said that was years ago. I said Aunt Teresa brought it up in the comments on Mom's post. She said, so what? I said so that meant the whole family had been mocking me for years, and the Facebook post was just the first time they did it publicly where I could screenshot it. She went quiet. Then she said I was twisting things. I said I wasn't twisting anything. I said I had spent 8 years living in that house being treated like a burden while paying rent on property I owned, and working a job that nobody took seriously because it wasn't what they considered real work. I said I had listened to Dad talk about his plans for his house and Mom complain about cooking for me when I had explicitly asked her to stop and Tabitha tell anyone who would listen that I was going nowhere. She said they were just worried about me. I said worried people don't publicly celebrate when you leave. Dad called again Tuesday afternoon. He had received the physical copy of the lease. His voice was different this time, flat. He said they needed to talk about the rent amount. I said the amount was market rate. He said they couldn't afford market rate. I said that wasn't my problem. He said I was really going to make them homeless. I said I was really going to charge them rent to live in my house like any other landlord would. He asked if I had any idea what their financial situation was. I said no, and I didn't need to know. He said they had been living paycheck to paycheck for years. I asked him whose fault that was. He didn't answer. Then he said something that actually surprised me. He said grandmother would be disappointed in how I was handling this. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I told him grandmother had specifically left me the house because she knew he would screw it up. I told him she had told me directly 2 weeks before she died that I was the only person in the family she trusted with anything important. Dad said I was lying. I said I wasn't, and if he wanted I could show him the letter she had written me that the lawyer had given me along with the will. He hung up. Mom tried again Wednesday. She asked if I would meet them for lunch. I said no. She asked if I would at least come to the house so we could talk. I said I didn't want to go back to that house. She asked why not. I said because it reminded me of 8 years of being treated like I didn't matter. She started crying. She said she had always loved me and she didn't understand where this anger was coming from. I said the anger was coming from being called a leech on Facebook. She said she had deleted the post. I said deleting it didn't unpost it. She said she didn't know what else she could do. I said she could sign the lease and pay rent like an adult. Thursday morning I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Teresa. She said she heard about what I was doing, and I should be ashamed of myself. She said kicking my parents out of their home was cruel and vindictive, and grandmother would never have wanted this. I replied that grandmother specifically left the house to me and not to Dad, so clearly she wanted exactly this. Teresa said I was being disrespectful to her memory. I said bringing up the McDonald's rejection on a public Facebook post was disrespectful to me, but nobody seemed concerned about that. She called me. I answered because I wanted to hear what she had to say. She told me I was ruining the family. I asked her how. She said by making everything about money and refusing to forgive. I asked her if she remembered mocking me in the comments on Mom's post. She said she was just joking around. I said it didn't feel like a joke. She said I was too sensitive. I asked her if I was too sensitive or if she was too comfortable treating me like garbage. She said that was unfair. I said her entire comment on that post was unfair, but she had posted it anyway. She tried a different angle. She said Dad was her brother and she couldn't stand by and watch me hurt him like this. I asked her if she had loaned Dad money. She went quiet. I asked again. She admitted she had loaned him money several times. I asked if he had paid her back. She said some of it. I asked how much. She said about 30%. I did the math in my head. If she had loaned him money multiple times and only gotten 30% back, then he owed her thousands. I asked her why she kept loaning him money. She said because he was family. I said so family means letting people take advantage of you. She said it meant helping people when they needed it. I said I had helped for 8 years by paying rent on my own house, and where did that get me? Friday afternoon, Dad sent me a text asking if we could negotiate on the rent. I asked what he wanted to negotiate. He said maybe we could do $2,000 a month and he would take care of all the maintenance on the house. I said no. He asked what I wanted. I said $3,000 a month as stated in the lease or they could move out. He said they needed more time. I said they had until the end of the month to either sign the lease or vacate. He said that was only 2 weeks. I said yes. Justine texted me again. She said she had been thinking about us and maybe we had ended things too quickly. I didn't respond. She texted again and said she missed me. I asked her what she missed specifically. She said she missed talking to me and spending time together. I asked her if she missed me, or if she missed the version of me she thought she could fix. She said that wasn't fair. I said her liking Mom's Facebook post wasn't fair, but it happened anyway. She said she had apologized for that. I pointed out that she had apologized to me privately but not publicly. She asked if I wanted her to comment on the post. I said the post was deleted. She asked what I wanted from her. I said nothing. I told her not to text me again. Saturday morning, Mom called crying. She said Dad had been up all night trying to figure out their budget and they couldn't make the rent work. I asked if they had looked at apartments. She said they couldn't afford to move. I said they couldn't afford to stay either, apparently. She said I was being impossible. I said I was being a landlord. She asked when I had become so cold. I said I became cold when my own mother posted on Facebook celebrating that I had moved out and calling me a leech. She said she regretted that. I asked what she regretted specifically. She said she regretted that it had hurt me. I said that wasn't the same as regretting doing it. She didn't know what to say to that. Then she told me something I hadn't known. She said Dad had borrowed money from his coworker to try to cover the first month's rent. I asked how much. She said $5,000. I asked why he needed $5,000 when the rent was $3,000. She said because they needed money for utilities and groceries. I asked if they had utility bills. She said yes. I asked who the utilities had been under. She said my name. I asked when they had planned to transfer them. She said they hadn't thought about it. That's when I realized they still didn't understand what was happening. They thought this was temporary. They thought if they paid the first month's rent and acted apologetic, then eventually I would cave and let them live there cheap again. They thought I was bluffing. Sunday afternoon, I sent them one more email. It contained scans of every utility bill for the past 3 years. Electric, gas, water, trash, internet, all in my name, all paid from my account. Below the scans, I included a simple sentence. These services will be transferred to your names or disconnected on the 1st of next month. Whatever happens after that is your responsibility. Dad called within minutes. He was yelling. He said I was trying to destroy them. I said I was trying to establish appropriate boundaries. He said boundaries don't involve cutting off someone's electricity. I said the electricity wasn't being cut off. It was being transferred to the actual residents of the property. He said I was insane. I said I was the homeowner and they were tenants, and this was how the relationship worked. He said I would regret this. I told him I didn't think I would. The deadline is in 6 days. They haven't signed the lease. They haven't said they're moving out. They're in some kind of denial where they think this will all go away. But it won't. And what they don't know yet is that the rent and utilities are just the beginning. Final update. The deadline was yesterday. They didn't sign the lease. They didn't move out. They thought I was bluffing. At midnight on the 1st of the month, every utility in that house shut off. Electric, gas, water, internet. I had called each company 2 weeks ago and requested service disconnection on that date. The automated systems don't care about family drama. They just followed the schedule. Dad called me at 6:23 a.m. The sun wasn't even up yet. He was yelling about the power being out and the water not working. I told him those services were in my name and I had discontinued them as stated in my email. He said I couldn't do that. I said I absolutely could, and I had given them 2 weeks' notice. He said they had food in the refrigerator that was going to spoil. I said they should have signed the lease or moved out. He hung up and called back 3 minutes later. This time Mom was on speakerphone. She was crying and asking how they were supposed to live without electricity. I told them to sign the lease and set up utilities in their own names and everything would be fine. Dad said they couldn't afford to do that. I said that sounded like their problem to solve. The calls kept coming. Every 15 minutes, different combinations of them. Dad alone. Mom alone. Both of them together. Tabitha called from the house phone at their neighbor's place. I let most of them go to voicemail. The ones I answered were all the same conversation. They couldn't believe I had actually done it. They thought I would back down. They kept saying I was being unreasonable and cruel, and this wasn't how family treated family. Around noon, Dad sent me a text asking if we could talk in person. I said no. He said please. I said no. He called and said he needed to tell me something important, and he couldn't do it over the phone. I told him he had 5 minutes. He said he had been going through some papers and he realized something. He said grandmother had left more than just the house. She had left a life insurance policy with me as the beneficiary. He asked if I still had that money. I said yes. He asked how much it was. I said enough. He said he needed to borrow some money just to get through this month. I asked him why he thought I would loan him money. He said because he was my father. I said that hadn't seemed to matter when he was posting photos of my room calling it his man cave. Then he said something that made me understand why grandmother had done what she did. He said the house should have been his anyway because he was her son, and I had manipulated her when she was old and confused. I asked him if he really believed that. He said yes. I asked him if he remembered all the times he had borrowed money from her and never paid it back. He said those were different circumstances. I asked him how. He said he had always intended to pay her back eventually. I told him eventually never came because she died first and he never had to face any consequences for taking advantage of her. Mom took the phone. She said Dad was just stressed and didn't mean what he was saying. I told her he meant every word. She asked what it would take for me to turn the utilities back on. I said sign the lease and set up new accounts. She said they didn't have the deposits for new utility accounts. I asked why not. She said because they had been using the $5,000 Dad borrowed from his coworker to pay bills. I asked which bills. She said credit cards mostly. I asked how much credit card debt they had. She said around $30,000. I didn't say anything. She asked if I was still there. I said yes. She said they had been managing, but things had gotten tight over the years. I asked her why they hadn't told me they were in debt. She said because it was embarrassing. I said posting about me being a leech was apparently not embarrassing. The calls continued all afternoon. By 5 p.m., I had 63 missed calls and 42 text messages. Teresa called and said I was destroying the family. I told her the family had destroyed itself. She said I needed to fix this. I asked her if she was going to pay their rent. She said she couldn't afford to. I said then she should stay out of it. She said she was going to tell everyone what I was doing. I told her to go ahead. She said people would take their side. I said people had already taken their side when they liked Mom's Facebook post. Tabitha showed up at my condo around 7. I don't know how she got my address. She buzzed the intercom and said she needed to talk to me. I told her to leave. She said she wasn't leaving until we talked. I said I would call the building security. She started yelling into the intercom about how I was ruining Mom and Dad's lives over nothing. Other residents were walking through the lobby. I could hear them on the intercom. I told her she had 60 seconds to leave or I was making the call. She left. She called me from her car. She said I was making everything worse and Mom was having some kind of breakdown and Dad was barely sleeping. I asked her whose fault that was. She said mine. I said no. I said their breakdown was happening because they had spent years living beyond their means in a house they didn't own and treating the actual owner like a burden. She said I was twisting everything. I said I was stating facts. She said facts without context. I asked what context made charging me rent to live in my own house acceptable. She didn't have an answer. Then she told me something that actually mattered. She said Dad's coworker wanted the $5,000 back. The coworker had loaned it with the understanding that Dad would pay him back within 2 weeks because that's when Dad claimed he was getting money from somewhere. Dad had told the coworker I was giving him money. The coworker had texted Dad that morning asking for the repayment, and Dad had admitted he didn't have it. Now the coworker was threatening to go to their boss about Dad borrowing money under false pretenses. Tabitha said Dad might lose his job. I asked her why that was my problem. She said because I was the one who caused it. I said Dad caused it by lying to his coworker about money he didn't have. Wednesday morning, I got a text from a number I didn't have saved. It was Justine. She said she had been thinking about everything, and she realized she had made a mistake breaking up with me. She said she wanted another chance. I asked her what had changed. She said she had done some reflecting. I asked her if the reflecting had anything to do with finding out I owned property and had money. She said that wasn't fair. I said her timing was interesting. She said she genuinely cared about me. I told her she genuinely cared about not being alone and I was convenient. She called me. I didn't answer. Dad sent me an email Wednesday afternoon. It was long. He explained their whole financial situation, the credit card debt, the car payments, the medical bills from when Mom had surgery 2 years ago, the personal loans from friends and family. He laid out every number. Then he said he understood why I was angry about the Facebook post, but this was going too far, and I was putting them in a position where they might lose everything. He asked me to reconsider the rent amount. He suggested $1,000 a month. I didn't respond. Thursday morning, Mom called me from Teresa's phone. She said they had been staying with Teresa since the utilities got shut off. She said Teresa's apartment was small, and they couldn't stay there long. She asked if I would at least turn the water back on so they could go back to the house. I said no. She said they needed to shower and use the bathroom. I said they could do that at Teresa's, or they could sign the lease. She said I was being inhumane. I said I was being a property owner who had given them multiple chances to handle this properly. Then she said something that made me realize how deep the denial went. She said once this all calmed down and we worked things out, she hoped we could go back to being a normal family. I asked her what normal meant. She said holidays together and Sunday dinners and normal family stuff. I asked her if she thought I was going to have Sunday dinners with people who had publicly called me a leech. She said she had apologized. I said she had deleted a post. That wasn't the same as apologizing. She said she was sorry. I asked her what she was sorry for specifically. She said for the post. I asked if she was sorry for the years of treating me like I was failing at life when I was actually succeeding. She went quiet. I asked if she was sorry for collecting rent for me to live in my own house. She said that was different. I asked how. She said because they needed the money. I said, and I needed respect and I didn't get it. Friday afternoon, I got a call from a number with a local area code I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Dad's coworker, Derek. He said he had gotten my number from Dad's phone. He said Dad had told him I would be paying back the $5,000. I said Dad had lied to him. Derek said he needed that money back because he had bills to pay. I said I understood, but it wasn't my debt. Derek said Dad had specifically said he was borrowing the money until he got some money from me. I told Derek that Dad had made that up. Derek asked if I was saying he wasn't getting his money back. I said he needed to work that out with Dad. Derek said he was going to go to their boss. I told him that was his decision to make. He hung up. Dad called me 10 minutes later screaming. He said I had just cost him his job. I said I had done nothing. He said Derek had gone to their boss and told him about the loan, and now there was an investigation because apparently company policy prohibits personal loans between employees. I asked him why that was my fault. He said because I refused to help him pay Derek back. I said I refused to pay his debt. He said it was $5,000 and it was nothing to me. I asked him how he knew what $5,000 meant to me. He said because I had bought a condo in cash. I said yes, and I had done that by working hard and saving money and not borrowing from people with no intention of paying them back. He hung up. Saturday morning, my phone started exploding. 31 calls in 2 hours, text messages constantly. Mom, Dad, Tabitha, Teresa, even some cousins I hadn't talked to in years. All of them saying the same things. I needed to fix this. I needed to help. I needed to be reasonable. I needed to remember family comes first. I turned my phone off and went to the gym. When I turned it back on 3 hours later, there were 68 new text messages. I scrolled through them. Most were variations of the same desperate pleas, but a few were different. These ones were mean. Tabitha said I was a terrible person and she was ashamed to be related to me. Teresa said grandmother would be disgusted. Dad said I was dead to him. Mom said she didn't recognize me anymore. I screenshot all of them, just like I had screenshot the Facebook post. Just like I had been keeping records of everything from the beginning. Sunday morning, Dad sent one more text. It just said, please. I looked at it for a long time. I thought about 8 years of paying rent on my own house. I thought about the Facebook post with 1,247 likes. I thought about the McDonald's story being used to humiliate me publicly. I thought about being called a leech. I thought about my room being turned into a man cave in photos before I'd even finished moving out. I texted back, sign the lease or move out. You have until end of day Monday. Monday came and went. No signed lease, no move-out notice. Tuesday morning, I filed eviction paperwork. Wednesday morning, a process server delivered it to them at Teresa's apartment. Dad called me Wednesday afternoon. His voice was different. Broken. He said they would sign the lease. I said the lease offer had expired. He asked what that meant. I said it meant they needed to vacate the property. He asked where they were supposed to go. I said that wasn't my concern. He said they had nowhere to go. I said they had options. They could find an apartment. They could stay with Teresa longer. They could figure it out like adults. He said I was really going to make them homeless. I said I was really going to enforce my property rights. Mom called Thursday morning sobbing. She said she didn't understand how I could do this to them. I said I didn't understand how they could have done what they did to me. She said the Facebook post was a mistake. I said the Facebook post was the truth about how they saw me. She said that wasn't true. I asked her to name one time in the past 8 years when they had treated me like my work mattered or my success was real. She couldn't. I asked her to name one time when they had asked about my life or my business or anything about me beyond when I was moving out. She started crying harder. It's been 6 weeks since I moved out. 4 weeks since the Facebook post. 3 weeks since I sent the property ownership notice. 2 weeks since the utilities shut off. 1 week since I filed eviction. They're still at Teresa's. The house is sitting empty. The property taxes are paid through the end of the year because I paid them. The insurance is current because I paid it. The mortgage doesn't exist because grandmother paid it off. Everything about that house is mine, and always has been. Dad lost his job. The investigation found that he had borrowed money from 3 different coworkers over the past 2 years and never paid any of them back. Derek wasn't the first. He was just the one who finally reported it. Mom had to get a part-time job at a grocery store because they need the income. Tabitha stopped calling me. Teresa posted on Facebook about family betrayal without naming me specifically, but everyone knew who she meant. Justine texted me one more time asking if we could just meet for coffee and talk. I blocked her number. The eviction will be final in 3 weeks. After that, I'm selling the house. I already have a real estate agent lined up. The market is good. I'll make a significant profit. None of that money will go to my family. People keep asking me if I feel bad, if I regret how this played out, if I wish I had handled it differently. The answer is no. They made their choices. They posted that celebration of my departure publicly. They mocked me. They collected rent from me for 8 years while living in my house. They treated my career like a joke and my success like it didn't exist. I gave them chances. Multiple chances. I could have filed eviction immediately. I could have shut off utilities without warning. I could have called their bluff from day one. Instead, I gave them options and time and opportunities to make this right. They chose not to take any of them. So no, I don't feel bad. I feel free. I feel vindicated. I feel like I finally set the boundaries I should have set 8 years ago. The 31-year-old leech is gone, and he's never coming back.